I really enjoyed Coco. It kept me engaged throughout and hit me deep in the feels toward the third act, proving once again Pixar's mastery when it comes to hitting those emotional beats in storytelling. Now, with all of that in mind, here's why it's a toxic piece of garbage. So in case you couldn't tell from that intro, I have a very conflicted relationship with this movie. I really wanted to like Coco, and I still do. I mean, for one, it looks gorgeous, which kind of goes without saying, it is Pixar, but you've also got to admire them for pulling off a fun movie for kids that's basically about dead people. When I was little, I was terrified of skeletons, but now I just want to hug them. Mind you, it's not the first time Pixar has done the whole shtick of turning the scary into something lovable, so I shouldn't be that surprised. My biggest immediate concern with the premise was that it would eradicate the consequences of death. However, Coco gets around this by quickly establishing even those in the afterlife can still die, or rather their legacy can die, which is what this is really all about, and that's genius. It also ties in nicely to the real-life traditions of Dia de Muertos, and incidentally, it's pleasing to see an authentic depiction of Mexican culture in a Disney movie that's not an insensitive caricature. I'm not going to automatically award the movie points for that, since representation is literally the bare minimum, but it's a start. Unfortunately, it's in the way in which Coco explores the themes of family associated with the holiday where things become problematic. So the inciting incident of the film is when the main protagonist, Miguel, comes to believe his great-great-grandfather is the famous musician Ernesto de la Cruz, prompting him to stand up to his family who don't approve of his musical abilities, arguing that it's in his blood. Straight away then, we are presented with this notion that in order to oppose his family, there has to be some kind of hereditary justification for it. An assumption I was hoping to see interrogated over the course of the runtime, because it should be his decision what he wants to do with his life. It's not up to his parents, grandparents, or anyone else to dictate that to him, and especially not because of some petty ancient family feud he had no part in. Imagine what it'd be like if in Romeo and Juliet the audience was expected to side with the families, but yet that's exactly what this film does by making out Miguel is the one in the wrong for defying his family's wishes, and he's the one with a lesson to learn. And the only real justification the movie provides for this is nothing is more important than family. We'll go into all of the troublesome implications of that statement in just a moment. But first I want to go on a brief tangent and talk about Ernesto. I'm so glad this guy turned out to be the villain. All of that bullcrap about seizing the moment and reaching for your dreams got old a long time ago. Frankly, it's a bad message to be teaching kids, giving them unrealistic expectations, and Pixar already signaled they were done with this nonsense in Monsters University, so it's nice to see that Ernesto was full of shit all along. Wouldn't it have been more interesting though if Ernesto had really been Miguel's great-great-grandfather? This would have forced the movie to acknowledge there is an asterisk next to the word family, and Coco even momentarily acknowledges the dilemma this would have created on a thematic level as Miguel contemplates the idea that his great-great-grandfather is a murderer, only for the movie to then conveniently sidestep the whole issue by revealing Hector was really Miguel's grandfather all along and Ernesto stole his guitar. Now, I might be accused of critiquing the film for what I wanted it to be rather than reviewing it on its own merits, but I really feel this movie had the opportunity to say something more nuanced here than family is important, which might sound nice to conservatives, but try telling that to kids who have abusive parents. Actually, the more I think about that, the more unforgivable that is. Let's just be clear for everyone in the back. Just because someone is related to you doesn't mean you automatically owe them anything by default. The phrase blood is thicker than water is often misunderstood. There's actually a longer variation of the phrase which goes the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. In other words, the bonds we make on the battlefield are stronger than familial ties, and that's a sentiment I very much agree with. Blood relations have to show they are worthy of your respect just the same as everyone else. And actually, since we're on that matter, let's go back and re-examine that scene where Miguel first stands up to his family. Despite clearly being able to see how much it means to Miguel, his grandmother smashes up his guitar right in front of him. Okay, so it was provoked by Miguel calling the offender stupid, but Miguel is a child. They're going to say stuff that's dumb and immature. It's Abuelita's job to be the responsible grown-up in this situation. But what makes it 10 times worse is how she then immediately goes to try and comfort Miguel, and this face right here absolutely screams red flags. You know, there's a technique abusers will often use where they create dependence in their victims by gaslighting them to the point where they believe their abuser to be the only one who can take away the very same pain and misery which they inflicted in the first place. This here is textbook emotional manipulation. In this moment I was right there with Miguel saying, run, get as far away as possible from this possessive, abusive, toxic piece of garbage. It's one thing when the message in your movie is nothing is more important than family, but to try to present this message after portraying showing actual abusive behaviour is extremely problematic. There was no need to make this scene so brutal. It's the difference between sticking their fingers in their ears to the notion that abusive families exist and actively looking those kids directly in the face and saying, yes, we hear you, now submit to your abusers. Neither is great, but one I think we can all agree is far worse. But hey, the family made it up with Hector, who wasn't really all that bad because he regretted going on the road and was writing to his daughter the whole time. And so Miguel is allowed to play his music again now, so I guess that makes everything okay. Except it's not, because it should never have been their decision to make in the first place. What about when he gets older and they start dictating to him who he can and can't be attracted to or how he wants to identify? Okay, so that might never happen with Miguel, but the fact is it's a reality millions of children living in the real world are facing right now. And that's why the idea that it's okay for his family to control his life and his personal choices in this way is so toxic. It honestly pains me having to rant about this movie, because as I said at the beginning, it did hit me in the feels, and if it had just handled its themes with a little more care, Coco could have been a masterpiece. But that's what's so frustrating. Pixar had the chance to say something really profound, but chickened out, and in doing so, they botched the message of the movie so badly that the end result is something deeply troubling. This is Midnight Chimes, still waiting for the last train home.